The cold came first. Then the sound of diesel engines idling in the pre-dawn dark, that low rumble that settles into your chest and stays there. The truck stop diner sat off Highway 200 like a forgotten promise, its neon sign flickering against frost-covered windows. Inside, the air smelled of burnt coffee, hash browns scraped from a griddle, and the particular exhaustion that comes with riding through a Montana December night. Clay Mercer sat in the corner booth, back to the wall, facing the door. 52 years old. Iron Shepherd's MC President patch worn into the leather across his shoulders. Lines in his face that had nothing to do with age, and everything to do with Fallujah, with sand and blood and the kind of heat that makes men forget what water tastes like. He drank his coffee black and watched his brothers finish their meals in the tired silence of men who had been riding for 6 hours straight. They had come from Billings, a charity run for the Children's Hospital. 12 bikes, 12 men and women who wore their leather-like armor and their loyalty like a second skin. The run had raised $42,000. Toys for kids who would spend Christmas in hospital beds. It was good work. Quiet work. The kind that never made the news. Lena Kovac sat across from Clay, her grease-stained hands wrapped around a mug of tea. 41. Mechanic. Single mother. She had rebuilt her Harley from the frame up after her ex-husband tried to destroy it in the driveway. She understood what it meant to protect what mattered. Outside, the parking lot stretched empty, except for 3 rigs and the row of motorcycles parked in perfect formation. The sky held that particular quality of darkness that comes just before dawn, when the world feels suspended between what was and what will be. It was 4:47 in the morning when the boy appeared. Clay saw him first, a shape against the window, small and still. The boy stood outside in the cold, his breath fogging the glass. He wore a jacket 3 sizes too large, the kind you get from a donation bin. His shoes were held together with duct tape. Gray tape, wrapped around the soles where the rubber had separated from the leather. The boy held something against his chest, something wrapped in the folds of his jacket. Clay set his coffee down. The movement was slow, deliberate. 12 years in the Marines had taught him to read a situation before acting. This boy was not lost. He was not asking for directions. His eyes held the kind of hollow emptiness Clay had seen in Fallujah, in the faces of children who had learned that the world offered no safety, no mercy, only the hope that someone might be less cruel than the last person they encountered. The boy knocked on the window. 3 soft taps. His knuckles were raw. Lena turned. Doc Galloway looked up from his eggs. The diner went quiet in the way that happens when something fragile enters a room full of people who have spent their lives learning to recognize danger. Clay stood. He moved to the door, pushed it open. The cold hit him like a fist. The boy did not step back. He looked up at Clay with eyes that had already seen too much. 7 years old, maybe, thin in a way that spoke of weeks, not days. His lips were cracked and bleeding at the corners. The boy unwrapped the jacket. Inside, a puppy. Shepherd mix. Maybe 8 weeks old. Ribs visible through brown and black fur. Shivering so hard its whole body trembled. The puppy's eyes were half closed. Its breathing was shallow. The boy's voice came out hoarse, like he had been screaming and had nothing left. "Please take my puppy. We haven't eaten in 3 days." Clay crouched down. Eye level. The way you approach something wounded. He did not reach for the puppy. He did not touch the boy. He simply looked at him, and the boy looked back, and in that exchange was a recognition older than words. "Who's we, son?" The boy's jaw tightened. He did not answer. Clay glanced at the puppy. Its tongue was pale, dehydrated, malnourished. The ears had marks on them, small tears in the soft tissue. Bite marks. Whether from another animal or something worse, Clay could not tell. Lena appeared in the doorway behind Clay. She held a plate of scrambled eggs and toast. She knelt down beside Clay, held the plate out to the boy. "You should eat something." The boy shook his head. He pushed the puppy toward Clay. His hands were shaking, not from the cold. "Just keep her safe, please." Clay reached out slowly, took the puppy. It weighed almost nothing. He cradled it against his chest. and the puppy made a small sound, something between a whimper and a sigh. Clay looked at the boy. "What's your name?" The boy hesitated. Then, so quietly, Clay almost missed it. "Marcus." "Marcus, where do you live?" The boy took a step back. His eyes darted to the road, then back to Clay. Fear. Real and immediate. I can't say." Clay kept his voice level. "Calm. We can help you. You and whoever else needs help. But you have to tell me where you are." Marcus shook his head. Tears filled his eyes but did not fall. He took another step back. "He'll hurt her too. He'll hurt her if he knows I told." Before Clay could respond, Marcus turned and ran. He bolted across the parking lot, his too large jacket flapping behind him, his duct-taped shoes slapping against the frozen asphalt. He disappeared into the pre-dawn darkness, into the line of trees that bordered the truck stop, and then he was gone. Clay stood there, holding the puppy. Lena stood beside him. Doc came out, followed by the rest of the club. They watched the empty space where the boy had been. The puppy whimpered. Clay looked down at it, then at the jacket Marcus had wrapped it in. Something was tucked into the pocket. Clay pulled it out. A photograph. Polaroid. Faded. A boy and a younger girl, both smiling. They stood in front of a small house with a porch. The boy was Marcus. The girl was maybe 4. On the back, written in pencil, smudged but still legible, 4782 Mill Creek Road. Clay stared at the address. Mill Creek Road. Something turned over in his chest. A memory. 16 years old. Buried deep, but not forgotten. Lena looked at him. "Clay?" Clay folded the photograph, slipped it into his pocket. He looked at his club, at the men and women who had chosen this life, this brotherhood, this code that said you protect those who cannot protect themselves. We find out who that boy is. We find out what he's running from. And then we decide what to do about it. Nobody argued. They never did. Not when it mattered. Clay sat alone in the clubhouse office, the photograph flat on the desk in front of him. The puppy slept in a cardboard box lined with towels near the space heater. Doc had checked her over, given her water with an eyedropper, a little soft food. She would survive. Kids were harder to save than animals. Kids required paperwork, proof, systems that moved slower than mercy. The address stared back at him. 4782 Mill Creek Road. He knew that road. Knew it the way you know the shape of a scar on your own skin. 16 years ago. Clay had been 36, freshly discharged, honorable on paper, broken in practice, the kind of broken that does not show up on x-rays. He had come back from Iraq with a chest full of medals and a head full of voices that would not stop. The VA had given him pills. The pills made the voices quieter, but turned everything else into gray static. He had rented a trailer on Mill Creek Road because it was cheap and far from people. The kind of place where nobody asks questions. He spent his days staring at walls, his nights waiting for dawn. He did not know if he wanted to live or die. He only knew he could not decide. Then Sarah Hollis started showing up. She lived 3 trailers down. Early 30s. Worked 2 jobs, one at the diner, one cleaning houses. She had a smile that was not fake, which was rare. She brought him groceries the first time without asking. Left them on his porch. Soup, bread, coffee, a note that said, "Everybody needs someone to check on them." She came back twice a week. Always groceries. Sometimes she would knock. Sometimes she would not. She never asked why his hands shook. Never asked why he could not look people in the eye. She just kept showing up. Kept checking. One night, Clay had been standing outside his trailer with a bottle of whiskey and a gun. He did not remember deciding to go outside. Did not remember loading the gun. He just stood there in the cold, trying to figure out which one he wanted more. Sarah had walked up the road. Seen him. She did not scream. Did not call the cops. She walked up to him, took the gun out of his hand, set it on the porch step. Then she sat down beside him and did not say a word, just sat there for 2 hours, until the sun came up. Afterward, she said only one thing. "Everybody needs someone to check on them, Clay. No shame in it. He never forgot that. Never forgot her. When he finally got clean, got his head straight, joined the Iron Shepherds and found a purpose bigger than his own pain, he tried to find her. Went back to Mill Creek Road. The trailer was empty. Neighbors said she had moved, remarried. Nobody knew where. Clay pulled out his phone, opened the club's encrypted group chat, typed a message to Ghost. Need a name and history. 4782 Mill Creek Road. Current resident. Everything you can find. The reply came back in 4 minutes. On it, Clay leaned back in his chair. The puppy stirred in the box, whimpered once, settled again. He thought about the boy. Marcus? The way he had looked at Clay, the way he had said, he'll hurt her too. Her. A sister. Had to be. Doc knocked on the doorframe, stepped inside. Thomas Galloway, 53, former paramedic. Lost his license 9 years ago after stealing opioids from the rig he worked on. Spent 2 years in a haze. Been clean ever since. He understood what it meant to crawl back from the edge. Kid was starving, Doc said. Not exaggerating. 3 days without food, maybe more. Puppy too. Dehydration. Malnutrition. Those marks on her ears? Could be another dog. Could be cigarette burns. Hard to say. Clay's jaw tightened. He said nothing. Doc sat down. You recognize that address? Yeah. Doc waited. Woman named Sarah Hollis lived there, long time ago. She kept me alive when I did not want to be. Doc nodded slowly. That why we're doing this? Clay looked at him. We're doing this because a 7-year-old boy just gave away the only thing he loved to keep it safe. That is why we are doing this. Doc did not argue. He never did when Clay used that tone. Ghost appeared in the doorway. Riley Chen, 30 years old, MIT dropout, hacker, caught exposing a corporate fraud scheme that put 6 executives in prison. Did 2 years probation. Joined the club because they were the only people who did not treat him like a criminal for doing the right thing. Got it, Ghost said. He held up his tablet. Current resident is Marcus Hollis, age 7. Mother Sarah Hollis, deceased 2 years ago. Ovarian cancer. Legal guardian is Derek Strand, stepfather. Married Sarah 4 years ago. Clay felt something cold settle in his chest. What else? Ghost scrolled. Derek Strand, 38. Shift supervisor at Highline Meatpacking. Social media is active. Lots of posts about discipline, traditional values, respect, guns. He pulled up a photo. This was posted 6 months ago. The photo showed Marcus, younger, thinner, a black eye, purple and swollen. The caption read, "Learned respect today." Clay stared at the screen. His hands did not shake. They had not shaken in years. But he felt the old anger, the kind that came from seeing something helpless hurt by something strong. Anything else? Ghost hesitated. Yeah. Sarah had 2 kids. Marcus, age 7. Emma, age 4. Emma is not enrolled in school. No medical records for the past 18 months. No social media presence. Nothing. Where is she? Do not know. CPS has no open cases. No flags in the system. Clay stood. He walked to the window. Looked out at the row of motorcycles parked in the lot. 12 bikes. 12 people who had chosen to live by a code older than law. Protect the weak. Respect the innocent. Act without expectation of reward. He turned back to Ghost and Doc. We go to that house. We do not break any laws. We stay on public property. We watch. We document. And we find out where that little girl is. Doc nodded. When? Now. Ghost looked at him. Clay, if this guy is what I think he is not going to just let us sit outside his house. Clay picked up his leather jacket, pulled it on. The Iron Shepherd's patch across the back, the weight of it familiar, necessary. Then he will have to call the cops. And when he does, we will be standing on public land, doing nothing illegal, and asking the same question he does not want anyone to ask. Where is Emma? Doc and Ghost exchanged a glance. Then they both stood. Clay walked to the main room of the clubhouse. The rest of the club was there. Lena, Preach, Maya, others. They looked up when he entered. Clay did not raise his voice. He never needed to. We have a situation. Boy named Marcus, 7 years old. Stepfather named Derek Strand. Address is 4782 Mill Creek Road. Boy is being starved. Maybe worse. He has a sister, 4 years old. Nobody has seen her in over a year. We are going to that house. We are going to watch. And we are going to make sure those kids are safe. Anybody has a problem with that? Say so now. Nobody spoke. Lena stood. I am in. Preach nodded. So am I. One by one, the rest of the club stood. Maya Trent, the social worker, stepped forward. I know the CPS system. If we do this, we do it right. No mistakes. Everything legal. Everything documented. Clay looked at her. Agreed. Maya pulled out her phone. I will contact the school. See what they know. If Marcus is showing signs of abuse, the teacher will have seen it. Clay turned to Ghost. I need everything on Derek Strand. Work schedule. Criminal record. Anything that gives us leverage. Ghost was already typing. On it. Clay looked at the faces of his brothers and sisters. People who had been broken and rebuilt. People who understood that the system did not always protect the ones who needed it most. Wheels up in 2 hours. We ride together. We stay legal. And we do not leave until we know those kids are safe. Nobody asked what would happen if Derek Strand refused to cooperate. They all already knew. The code was clear. You protect the ones who cannot protect themselves, no matter what it costs. 2 hours later, the Iron Shepherd's clubhouse looked like a war room. Maps spread across the table. Laptops open. Phones charging. The puppy slept in her box, unaware that 12 people were preparing to upend their lives for a boy they had met once and a girl they had never seen. Maya stood at the head of the table, her social worker instincts taking over. She had spent 5 years inside the system before she couldn't stomach the bureaucracy anymore. She knew every loophole, every regulation, every way a case could disappear into paperwork while a child disappeared into silence. Listen up, she said. Her voice was steady, clinical. If we do this wrong, Marcus and Emma get hurt worse than they already are. CPS will not act without visible injury or credible witness testimony. Anonymous tips go nowhere. A home visit requires probable cause we do not have, so we build the case brick by brick. Legal observation, documentation, witness statements. We do this right, or we do not do it at all. Lena leaned forward, her mechanic's hands flat on the table. How long does that take? Depends on what we find. Could be days, could be weeks. We do not have weeks, Lena said. Clay spoke from the corner of the room. Then we make sure we find what we need fast. Ghost looked up from his laptop. I pulled Derek Strand's work schedule. He is on shift today, noon to 8. That gives us a window to observe the house when he is not there. Preach, the former chaplain, sat with his hands folded. Samuel Washington, 55 years old. Dishonorably discharged for refusing an order he believed was immoral. He had spent 6 months in Leavenworth for it. He came out believing more in God and less in the people who claimed to speak for him. What about the neighbors? Preach asked. Someone has to have seen something. Maya nodded. I will canvass. People talk to social workers. Sometimes. Clay pushed off the wall. We also need more people. If Derek calls the cops, and he will, we need to be visible enough that it becomes a story. 1 bike outside his house is harassment. 50 bikes is a statement. Ghost was already typing. I will reach out to the allied clubs, Northern Riders, Copper Canyon, Glacier Brotherhood. Do it, Clay said. Within 20 minutes, the responses started coming in. Ghost read them aloud as they appeared on his screen. Northern Riders, 18 members available. Copper Canyon, 9. Glacier Brotherhood, 13. Lena did the math. That is 52 total, counting us. Clay looked at the group. We rotate in shifts. 6 bikes minimum on site at all times. We stay on public property. No exceptions. We do not engage unless he engages first. We film everything. Helmet cams, phones, everything. Doc spoke up. I will bring medical supplies. If we get eyes on those kids and one of them needs help, I want to be ready." Maya added, "I will prep a formal report for CPS. The moment we have enough, we file. After that, they have 72 hours to investigate." Clay walked to the wall where the club's charter hung in a frame, the code written out in careful script. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. Respect the innocent. Act without expectation of glory or reward. He turned back to the group. "This is what we do. This is why we exist. Not for the rides, not for the parties. For this, for the ones nobody else will fight for." Lena stood. "When do we leave?" "Noon. We arrive when Derek leaves for work. We set up. And we do not leave until those kids are safe." The room went quiet. Not the silence of doubt, but the silence of people who had made a decision and would see it through no matter the cost. Preach bowed his head. "Let me say something before we go." Nobody objected. Preach did not preach often. When he did, people listened. "Lord, we are not asking for victory. We are not asking for ease. We are asking for wisdom, for restraint, for the strength to do what is right even when it is hard. Protect those children. Guide our hands. Keep our hearts clear. Amen." "Amen," the group echoed. Clay looked at each of them. Lena, who had fought her own custody battle and won. Doc, who had lost everything to addiction and clawed his way back. Ghost, who had gone to prison for exposing the truth. Preach, who had chosen morality over orders. Maya, who had walked away from a paycheck because she could not watch one more child fall through the cracks. These were not saints. They were people who had been broken and refused to stay that way. Clay pulled on his gloves. "Gear up. We ride in 30. The clubhouse became motion. Jackets zipped. Helmets checked. Bikes rolled out of the garage one by one. Lena did a final check on each motorcycle, her trained eye catching anything that might fail on a cold ride. Ghost mounted cameras to helmets, tested the feeds, made sure everything recorded to encrypted cloud storage. Doc packed his kit, bandages, antiseptic, pediatric medications, a stethoscope. He had not used it in 9 years, but his hands still remembered. Maya printed copies of Montana child welfare statutes, highlighted the relevant sections, slipped them into a waterproof folder. Knowledge was armor. The law could protect or destroy depending on who knew how to use it. At 11:45, the Iron Shepherds stood in formation in the parking lot. 12 bikes, 12 riders. The temperature was 23 degrees. The sky was gray and low. Snow threatened but had not yet fallen. Clay mounted his bike. A 1998 Harley Softail. He had rebuilt it himself. Every bolt, every wire. It was loud and scarred and utterly reliable. He looked down the line. His family. Not by blood, but by choice, by code. Stay tight, stay legal, stay smart. We do this right. Engines turned over. One by one, the sound building. 12 became a chorus. The rumble rolled across the parking lot, deep and resonant. The kind of sound that makes windows vibrate and hearts beat faster. Clay kicked his bike into gear, pulled out onto the road. The others followed. 2 columns, tight formation, the patch on every back identical. Iron Shepherds, a promise made visible. They rode east toward Mill Creek Road. The highway stretched out cold and empty. The mountains rose in the distance, snow-capped and indifferent. The world did not care about one boy and one missing girl. But these 12 did, and that would have to be enough. By the time they reached the outskirts of town, 3 more groups had joined them. 18 bikes from Northern Riders, 9 from Copper Canyon, 13 from Glacier Brotherhood. The convoy grew. 52 motorcycles moving as one. People stopped on the sidewalks to watch. Cars pulled over. Phones came out. The sound of 52 engines was not something you heard every day in a town this size. Clay did not look at them. He kept his eyes on the road, on the address burned into his memory. 4782 Mill Creek Road. They turned onto Mill Creek just after noon. The neighborhood was small, rural. Trailers and prefab houses set back from the road. Trees bare and skeletal. driveways rutted with frozen mud. Clay slowed, raised his hand. The convoy slowed behind him. He stopped 200 yards from 4782. Public road. Legal. The house was small. White siding. Peeling paint. A porch with a broken railing. One window facing the street. Curtains drawn. In the driveway, a truck. Ford F-250. Black. Newer model. Derek's truck, according to Ghost Research. As they watched, the front door opened. A man stepped out. 6'2", 240 pounds, work boots, Carhartt jacket, Derek Strand. He looked at the line of motorcycles. His face did not change. He walked to his truck, got in, started the engine, backed out of the driveway. He drove past the convoy slowly, staring. Clay stared back. Neither man blinked. Derek turned onto the main road and disappeared toward town, toward his shift at the meatpacking plant. Clay pulled his bike onto the shoulder. Public property. Legal. The others followed. 52 bikes parked in formation. Engines cut. Silence. Clay dismounted. Looked at the house. Somewhere inside. Marcus. Somewhere maybe. Emma. He pulled out his phone. Took a photo of the house. The address visible. Time stamped. The watch had begun. The first hour passed in silence. 52 bikers standing beside their machines on a frozen road in rural Montana. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved unnecessarily. They simply watched the house at 4782 Mill Creek Road. Clay stood at the front of the formation, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the single window facing the street. The curtains were drawn but not completely. A gap of maybe 2 inches. Through it, nothing visible. Just darkness. At 1:15, movement. A curtain shifted. A small face appeared. Marcus. He looked out at the row of motorcycles, his expression unreadable from this distance. He did not wave, did not smile. He simply looked. Then the curtain fell back into place, and he was gone. Lena stepped beside Clay. He saw us. Clay nodded. Good. He needs to know we did not forget him. At 1:30, a mail carrier drove past in a white sedan with a postal service magnet on the door. She slowed, stared at the bikes, kept driving. 2 houses down, an elderly woman came to her window, watched for 5 minutes. Then her curtain closed too. The neighborhood was aware. That was enough for now. At 2:05, Derek's truck returned. Clay saw it coming from a quarter-mile out. The black F-250 moving faster than it should on a residential street. It pulled into the driveway hard, tires crunching gravel. The engine cut. The door opened. Derek Strand stepped out. He did not look surprised. He looked angry. He walked directly toward Clay, boots heavy on the asphalt, his jaw set, his hands loose at his sides but ready. Clay had seen that walk before. Iraq. Men who wanted a fight and were trying to decide if they could win it. Derek stopped 10 feet away, close enough to be heard, far enough to keep it from being assault. Private property. Move along. Clay did not move. Public road. We are not on your land. Derek's eyes scanned the line of bikers. 52 people. All of them watching him. None of them moving. This is harassment. I will call the sheriff. You should, Clay said. His voice was calm. Even. We will wait. Derek pulled out his phone. Took photos of the bikes. The license plates. Clay's face. He did not try to hide it. Then he dialed. Held the phone to his ear. His eyes never left Clay. Yeah. Sheriff's office? I have a biker gang parked outside my house. 50 of them. I want them removed. He listened. His jaw tightened. Then send someone out here. This is intimidation. Another pause. He hung up. Looked at Clay. They are on their way. Clay nodded. Good. Derek turned and walked back to his house. The door slammed behind him. A moment later, the curtains in the window were yanked fully closed. Doc stepped up beside Clay. That went well. Clay did not take his eyes off the house. He is scared. Scared people make mistakes. 15 minutes later, a sheriff's cruiser rolled up. White and green, county markings. It parked between the bikes and the house. The door opened, and Sheriff Dale Connors stepped out. 61 years old. 3 months from retirement. Clay knew him. Not well, but enough. The Iron Shepherds had worked with the sheriff's department on charity events. Toy drives. Thanksgiving dinners for families in need. Connors was a decent man in a job that did not always allow decency. Connors walked over to Clay. He looked tired. Clay. Sheriff. Connors glanced at the line of motorcycles. You want to tell me what this is about? Clay handed him the photograph, the Polaroid Marcus had left in the puppy's jacket. Connors looked at it. Front and back. Read the address. Boy gave this to me this morning. Said he had not eaten in 3 days. Begged me to take his puppy because someone was going to hurt her. Then he ran. This is the address on the back. That house right there. Connors looked at the house, then back at Clay. So you brought 50 bikers to sit outside it. We are on public property. We are not breaking any laws. We are simply watching. Connors rubbed his face. Clay, I know what you are trying to do, but unless you have proof of abuse, I cannot do anything. And neither can you. We are not doing anything, Clay said. We are standing on a public road. Derek Strand filed a complaint. Says you are harassing him. Is it harassment to stand on public land? Connors sighed. Legally? No. Practically? Yeah, it is. Clay looked at him. You know about the boy, Sheriff. Marcus Hollis, 7 years old. His mother was Sarah Hollis. She died 2 years ago. Derek Strand is his stepfather. How many domestic disturbance calls have you responded to at that address? Connors's expression shifted. Slight, but visible. 2. Both times the kid would not talk. No visible injuries. No grounds to remove him. What about the girl? Emma. 4 years old. Where is she? Connors hesitated. I do not know. Nobody does, Clay said. She is not in school. No medical records. Nothing. You do not think that is strange? Connors looked at the house. Then at Clay. You are putting me in a bad spot here. We are not asking you to do anything illegal, Sheriff. We are just asking you to pay attention. Connors was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. I will make a note in the file. But Clay, if Derek calls again and you are still here, I will have to respond. I cannot ignore a repeated complaint. Understood. Connors walked back to his cruiser. He sat inside for a few minutes. Writing. Then he drove away. Lena exhaled. That could have gone worse. Clay did not respond. His attention was back on the house. On the window where Marcus had appeared. On the silence behind those walls. At 3:30, Ghost approached with his tablet. Got something. What? Pulled Derek's record. 2 domestic disturbance calls like the sheriff said. Both in the last 18 months. Officers noted uncooperative child in their reports. No charges filed. Also found his social media. Lots of posts about discipline. Traditional parenting. Stand your ground rhetoric. And this. Ghost turned the tablet. A Facebook post from 4 months ago. A photo of a rifle. Caption read, Teach them young. Teach them right. Respect is not optional. Clay stared at the screen. Anything else? Yeah. I ran a search on Emma Hollis. No school enrollment. Last pediatric visit was 22 months ago. Routine checkup. Nothing since. Where is she? That is the question. Clay looked at the house again. The door. The windows. The silence. Somewhere inside, 2 children. 1 visible. 1 missing. Both in danger. At 4:15, the first news van arrived. A white van with KRTV Great Falls printed on the side. It parked across the street. A reporter got out. Young, mid-20s. She held a microphone. A cameraman followed. She approached cautiously. Stopped a respectful distance from Clay. Excuse me? Can I ask what is happening here? Clay looked at her. Measured his words. We are concerned about the welfare of a child. We are observing from public property. That is all. Are you with a motorcycle club? Iron Shepherds. Yes. Why are you here? Because a 7-year-old boy asked us to protect his puppy. Because he said he had not eaten in 3 days. Because we believe children should be safe. And because nobody else was checking. The reporter glanced at her cameraman. He was already filming. She turned back to Clay. Do you have proof of abuse? We have a starving child and a missing 4-year-old girl. We have a stepfather who posts about discipline and respect on social media. We have 2 domestic disturbance calls and no follow-up. That is enough for us to stand here and watch. The reporter nodded slowly. How long are you planning to stay? As long as it takes. She looked at the house, at the line of motorcycles, at the bikers standing silent and still. Then she turned to the camera. This is Amanda Pierce reporting from Mill Creek Road, where over 50 members of motorcycle clubs have gathered outside a residence in what they are calling a child welfare concern. The situation is developing. More at 6. The van pulled away. Lena watched it go. That is going to get attention. Clay nodded. That is the idea. By 5 o'clock, the sun was setting. The temperature dropped to 17 degrees. The bikers did not move. Some sat on their bikes. Some stood. A few walked small circles to keep circulation going, but nobody left. Inside the house, lights came on. Kitchen, living room. A shadow moved past a window. Tall. Derek. Clay watched. Waited. The night stretched out cold and clear. Stars began to appear. The road stayed empty except for the motorcycles and the people who refused to leave. At 6:30, Derek came out again. He stood on the porch, stared at them. Then he went back inside. Doc approached Clay. We should set up in shifts. People need rest. Clay shook his head. Not yet. Not tonight. Tonight we all stay. We show him we are serious. Doc nodded. All right. The temperature kept dropping. The cold settled deep. But the bikers stayed. 52 people who had chosen to stand between a child and the dark, who had decided that sometimes the right thing requires discomfort, requires sacrifice, requires presence. Clay pulled his collar up against the wind. He thought about Sarah, about the way she had sat beside him that night 16 years ago, how she had not said a word, just stayed. Now it was his turn. To stay. To watch. To be the person who did not leave when it was easier to go. Morning came cold and gray. The bikers had rotated through the night in 3-hour shifts. But Clay had not left. He stood in the same spot he had occupied since noon the day before. His leather jacket crusted with frost. His breath visible in the freezing air. 17 degrees. The kind of cold that makes your lungs ache. Maya arrived at 7 with coffee and thermoses, and information that mattered more than warmth. She parked her truck down the road, walked up carrying a file folder under her arm. Her face was set in the expression Clay had learned meant she had found something. I talked to the school, Maya said. She handed Clay a cup of coffee. He took it but did not drink. His attention was on her words. Marcus attends Mill Creek Elementary, 2nd grade. His teacher is Rachel Arnell, 29 years old, 3rd year teaching. She was hesitant at first. But when I explained who we were and why we were here, she opened up. What did she say? Maya pulled papers from the folder. Marcus falls asleep in class regularly. He wears the same clothes for 3-4 days at a time. He hoards food from the cafeteria, puts it in his pockets. Mrs. Arnell has seen him flinch when she raises her hand too quickly. He does not play with other kids. Does not speak unless spoken to. Clay's jaw tightened. He looked at the house. The windows still dark except for one dim light in what might be a kitchen. There is more, Maya said. She handed him several pieces of paper. Drawings. Crayon on construction paper. The kind of art 2nd graders make during class. Clay looked at the first one. A house. Brown and black. Windows colored solid black. No door visible. In the corner, a small figure. A boy. His mouth a straight line. The second drawing showed 2 figures, one large, one small. The large figure had arms raised. The small figure was on the ground. Red crayon scattered around the small figure like rain. The third drawing was of a dog, brown with black spots. Its eyes were X marks. Dead. Clay handed the drawings back. His hands were steady, but his voice was not. She gave you these? Copies. The originals are in Marcus's file. Mrs. Arnell has been documenting for months. She called CPS twice. Both times an investigator came during school hours. Talked to Marcus in the counselor's office. Marcus said nothing. Investigator closed the case. Of course he said nothing, Lena said. She had walked over, listened to the conversation. Kid is terrified. Maya nodded. Mrs. Arnell also said Marcus mentioned a sister once, in October. Another kid asked him if he had siblings. Marcus said he had a sister named Emma. Then he stopped talking for the rest of the day. Would not say another word. Mrs. Arnell asked him the next day where his sister was. Marcus said he was not supposed to talk about her. Clay looked at Doc. You hearing this? Doc nodded. That is concealment. Active instruction not to speak about a sibling. That is not normal parenting. That is control. Ghost appeared from the other side of the road where he had been monitoring social media on his tablet. We have a problem. Derek just posted on Facebook. He turned the tablet around. The post was public. Time stamped 20 minutes ago. Under siege by motorcycle gang. Threatened on my own property. Police will not help. Second Amendment exists for a reason. Will protect my family. Below the post, 15 comments already. Half supporting him. Half questioning why bikers would target a random person. The post had been shared 9 times. Clay read it twice. Then he looked at Ghost. Can you pull his purchase records? Firearms? Already did. Derek owns 4 registered firearms. 2 rifles. 2 handguns. All legal. Lena exhaled slowly. So now he is setting up a narrative. Makes himself the victim. Makes us the threat. That is exactly what he is doing, Maya said. And if this goes viral, it changes everything. Clay looked at the line of bikers. 52 people who had given up jobs, sleep, warmth to stand on a frozen road because a child needed them. 52 people who would now be painted as a gang, as a threat, as the villains. He turned to Ghost. Counter it. Post on our page. Explain why we are here. Show the drawings if Mrs. Arnell gives permission. Show Marcus's photo from Derek's own Facebook, the one with the black eye. Let people decide who the threat is. Ghost was already typing. On it. At 8:30, a car pulled up. An older model sedan, tan. A woman got out. Late 60s. Gray hair. She wore a heavy coat and carried a canvas bag. She walked directly toward the bikers without hesitation. Clay stepped forward. Can I help you? The woman looked at him. Looked at the house. Then back at Clay. My name is Carla Dupree. I live 2 houses down. I brought coffee and food. Figured you might need it. She set the bag down. Inside, sandwiches wrapped in foil. A thermos. Apples. Clay studied her face. Why? Because I hear him, she said quietly. At night. Not the man. The boy. Screaming. I have heard it for months. Have you called the police? Carla's expression hardened. Twice. Both times they came during the day when Derek was at work. Both times Marcus said nothing. And both times the officers left. She paused. I promised Sarah I would watch over him. I have failed at that. Clay's chest tightened. You knew Sarah? She was my neighbor. My friend. Before she died, she made me promise. She knew Derek was not a good man, but she was sick and running out of time, and she thought maybe he would change. She looked at the house. He did not change. Where is Emma? Carla's face went pale. I do not know. I have not seen her in over a year. I asked Derek once. He said she was staying with family. But Sarah's family is all gone. There is no family. Clay felt something cold move through him. You think he did something to her? I think nobody has seen that child in 18 months. And I think that should terrify everyone. Maya stepped forward. Mrs. Dupree, would you be willing to make a formal statement? To who? To CPS? To the sheriff? To anyone who will listen? Carla nodded. Yes. I will say whatever you need me to say. Just get those kids out of that house. Maya pulled out her phone, started recording. Mrs. Dupree began to speak. She talked about the screaming, about the way Marcus looked when he walked to the school bus stop. About the time she saw a bruise on his neck shaped like fingers. About Emma. About the silence where a 4-year-old's laughter should have been. When she finished, Maya saved the recording. Sent it to her own email. To Ghost. To 3 backup locations. Evidence that could not be lost. Carla looked at Clay. How long are you staying? As long as it takes. She nodded. Good. She picked up her bag and walked back to her car. Before she got in, she turned. Sarah would be grateful for what you were doing. Then she drove away. At 10:15, Ghost's tablet chimed. He looked at the screen. His eyes widened. Clay, you need to see this. Clay walked over. Ghost turned the tablet. Their Facebook post had been shared 400 times. The comments were rolling in. People from across Montana, across the country, supporting them, sharing their own stories of abuse, of children failed by the system. One comment stood first. Verified account. A child advocacy organization out of Seattle. We stand with the Iron Shepherds. Protect the innocent. Below it, hundreds more. Teachers, social workers, parents, survivors. Lena read over Clay's shoulder. We are not alone in this. No, Clay said. We are not. But at 11, the tide shifted. A counterpost appeared on a firearms advocacy page. Link to Derek's post. New caption. Biker gang terrorizes father. This is why we have the Second Amendment. It was shared 600 times in 30 minutes. The story was splitting. Half the internet supported the bikers. Half supported Derek. The middle ground was disappearing. Doc looked at Clay. This is going to get ugly. Clay looked at the house. At the window where Marcus had appeared yesterday. At the door that had not opened except for Derek. At the driveway where a truck sat ready to run. It was already ugly, Doc. We are just making people look at it. At noon, a second news van arrived. Then a third. Reporters with cameras. Questions shouted from across the road. Clay did not answer. He simply stood. Watching. Waiting. Inside the house, Derek moved past a window. Fast. Agitated. A phone to his ear. Ghost's tablet chimed again. Derek just called his work. Told them he is taking emergency leave. Family situation. Clay felt it then. The shift. The moment when a man realizes he is cornered and decides whether to surrender or fight. Get everyone ready, Clay said quietly. This is about to break. By the afternoon of the 3rd day, Mill Creek Road had become something else entirely. No longer a quiet rural street. Now a focal point. A line drawn in frozen asphalt between what people claimed to believe and what they were willing to do about it. The bikers had established a permanent presence. Tents erected on the public easement. A generator humming. Coffee station. Portable heaters that did little against the cold but everything for morale. 97 bikers now. Word had spread. Clubs from 3 states. People who had never met Marcus or Emma, but understood what it meant when a child asks for help and the system looks away. Clay had not left his position in 72 hours. He stood or sat on his bike, eyes fixed on the house, operating on something beyond exhaustion. Lena brought him food he barely touched. Doc checked his vitals twice and said nothing when Clay waved him off. There were things more important than sleep, more necessary than warmth. At 2 p.m, Derek made his move. 3 men arrived in a lifted pickup truck. Late 30s. Carhartt jackets, work boots. One wore a baseball cap with a Gadsden flag patch. They parked across from the bikers and got out slowly, making sure everyone saw them. Making sure everyone understood. The man in the flag hat walked to the edge of the road, stopped 10 feet from Clay. His friends flanked him. You need to leave. Clay did not move. Public property. You are harassing a good man. We are standing on a road. The man's jaw worked. You people think you can intimidate whoever you want. Think your leather and your bikes make you tough. Clay's voice stayed level. We are not here to intimidate anyone. We are here because a child is in danger. That is a lie. Derek is a good father. Works hard. Provides for his family. Then he has nothing to hide. Lena said from beside Clay. Let CPS do a home visit. Let them see the kids. If everything is fine, we leave. The man pointed at her. You do not get to make demands. We are not making demands, Clay said. We are asking questions. Where is Emma? The man hesitated. Who? Emma Hollis. 4 years old. Nobody has seen her in 18 months. Not school, not doctors. Nobody. Where is she? The man's face shifted. Uncertainty creeping in. That is none of your business. It is everyone's business when a child disappears. She did not disappear. She is with family. What family? Clay asked. Sarah's parents are dead. She had no siblings. Derek's family lives in Idaho and has not seen Emma either. Ghost checked. So where is she? The man had no answer. He looked at his friends. They looked back. The certainty draining. A car slowed. Passenger window down. A phone recording. The confrontation being filmed. Live. The man in the flag hat noticed. His expression hardened again, but it was performance now. Desperation. You are going to regret this, he said. Clay met his eyes. We already regret waiting this long. The men returned to their truck, sat inside for 5 minutes, then drove away. But the damage was done. Not to the bikers, to Derek, because that video went viral in under an hour. Ghost showed Clay the numbers. 40,000 views, 70,000, comments pouring in. The question being asked over and over, where is Emma? News vans multiplied, 4, then 6. National outlets now, CNN affiliate, Fox, independent journalists with cameras and questions. A reporter approached Maya. She was older, professional, carried herself with the authority of someone who had covered wars and elections and knew the difference between a story and the truth. Can you tell me why you are here? Maya did not hesitate. We are here because a 7-year-old boy named Marcus Hollis approached members of the Iron Shepherd's Motorcycle Club 3 days ago. He was starving. He begged them to take his puppy to keep her safe. He said they had not eaten in 3 days. He said someone would hurt the puppy. When we investigated, we found that Marcus has a 4-year-old sister named Emma. Nobody has seen her in over a year. No school enrollment, no medical records, nothing. We are here to make sure both children are safe. The reporter turned to her cameraman. Are you getting this? He nodded. She turned back to Maya. What do you want to happen? We want a welfare check, a real one. We want CPS to go inside that house and verify that both children are alive and safe. If they are, we leave. If they are not, we want those kids protected. The interview aired at 5. It was shared 90,000 times by 6. At 7, Derek posted again. Another Facebook rant. More unhinged than the first. Accusations of harassment, threats of lawsuits, claims of constitutional violations. But buried in the rage was a single sentence that Ghost caught and flagged immediately. My children are fine, both of them. Safe and cared for. Ghost showed it to Clay. He just admitted Emma is in that house. Clay felt it. The crack. The first real confirmation. Emma was alive, or had been recently enough for Derek to claim it in writing. Maya was already on her phone. Calling CPS, providing the statement, the post, the timeline, building the case piece by piece. At 8:40, Sheriff Connors returned. He parked his cruiser and walked directly to Clay. He looked older than he had 3 days ago, tired in a way that had nothing to do with hours worked. Clay, this is out of control. Then help us control it, Clay said. Do a welfare check. Go in that house. Verify both kids are safe. If they are, we leave tonight. Connors shook his head. I need probable cause. A judge's order. I cannot just kick in a door because bikers are camped outside. You have plenty of cause, Maya said. She handed him a printed document. 3 pages. Teacher testimony. Neighbor testimony. Social media evidence. Medical record gaps. The timeline of Emma's disappearance. Derek's own admission that both children are inside. Connors read it. His expression changed. Where did you get all this? We asked questions, Maya said. We listened. We documented. Everything there is legal. Everything there is true. Connors folded the papers. I will take this to the county attorney. But it is after hours. Nothing happens until morning. Morning might be too late, Clay said. Connors looked at the house. Then at Clay. I know, but my hands are tied. He walked back to his cruiser. Sat inside. Made a call. Clay watched him through the windshield. Saw the frustration. The helplessness. The same expression every decent person wore when the system moved slower than suffering. At 9:30, the lights inside the house went out. All of them. Complete darkness. Doc stepped beside Clay. That is not normal. No, it is not. At 10:15, Derek's truck started. Headlights off. Engine idling. Clay felt his pulse quicken. He is running. Lena was already on her bike, keys in the ignition. Others mounted up. Engines turning over. Ready. The garage door opened. Derek's truck backed out fast. He turned onto the road, headlights still off, and accelerated toward the highway. Clay did not pursue. Could not. That was felony stalking. Instead, he pulled out his phone, called Sheriff Connors. Derek Strand just left his house, driving without headlights, heading east on Mill Creek toward Highway 200. We are not following, but someone should stop him. Connors was in his car in seconds. Clay heard the siren through the phone before Connors hung up. The bikers waited. Minutes stretched. The house sat dark and silent. Clay stared at it, thought about Marcus inside, about Emma. Alone now, abandoned or worse. At 10:40, Ghost's phone rang. He answered, listened. His face went pale. What? Clay asked. Sheriff stopped Derek at the highway intersection. Marcus and Emma are in the truck. Emma is unresponsive. Ambulance is on the way. Clay was on his bike before Ghost finished speaking. Lena beside him. Doc grabbing his medical kit. They rode fast. Legal limits. Barely. They reached the intersection in 4 minutes. Red and blue lights everywhere. Sheriff's cruiser blocking the road. Derek's truck stopped at an angle. Door open. Derek in handcuffs on the ground. And standing beside the truck, Marcus, shaking, crying, holding a small bundle wrapped in a blanket. Clay dismounted, walked slowly toward the scene. Sheriff Connors saw him, nodded once. Permission. Clay approached Marcus, knelt down. The boy looked at him with eyes that had seen the end of hope and found it empty. She would not stop crying, Marcus whispered. He locked us in the closet. 3 days. No food, no water. I gave her mine. All of it. But she would not stop. Clay looked at the bundle, at the small face barely visible. Emma, 4 years old, pale, lips cracked, eyes closed. Doc was there. He took Emma gently from Marcus's arms, laid her on the ground, checked her pulse, her breathing. Started an IV line from his kit with hands that had not done this in 9 years, but remembered every motion. Ambulance arrived. Paramedics took over. Loaded Emma onto a gurney. Marcus tried to follow. Clay caught him gently. You are going with her, I promise. But let them help her first. Marcus collapsed into Clay. The first time he had been held in months. He sobbed. Not the quiet tears of a child. The broken wails of someone who had carried too much for too long. Sheriff Connors stood over Derek. Read him his rights. 2 counts child endangerment. Medical neglect. Unlawful imprisonment. The charges would grow. They always did when you started digging. Clay held Marcus. Did not let go. Around them, 97 bikers stood silent. Witnesses. Protectors. The people who had refused to look away. The ambulance pulled away, lights flashing. Marcus and Emma inside, Doc riding with them. Clay watched until the lights disappeared. Then he turned to the house at 4782 Mill Creek Road, dark and empty now. A place where suffering had lived, where it would live no longer. The emergency room at Benefice Health System in Great Falls smelled like antiseptic and fear. Fluorescent lights turned everything the color of old bone. Clay sat in the waiting area, still wearing his leather jacket, his hands folded between his knees. He had not moved in 2 hours, except to stand when the doctors came through the double doors with updates. Doc sat beside him. his medical kit on the floor between his boots. He had ridden in the ambulance with Emma and Marcus, had held the IV line steady while the paramedics worked, had whispered to Emma that she was safe now even though she could not hear him. When they arrived at the hospital, the staff had recognized him. Thomas Galloway, the paramedic who lost his license. Some looked away. Others nodded. One nurse touched his shoulder and said, "Good to see you, Tom." Lena stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the parking lot. Maya was on her phone in the hallway, coordinating with CPS, making sure the state moved faster than it ever had before. Ghost sat with his tablet, documenting everything, because documentation was the only thing that made truth undeniable. The rest of the club waited outside in the cold. 94 bikers standing in the hospital parking lot like sentinels. Security had asked them to leave twice. Both times they had refused politely. The third time, the hospital administrator came down, looked at the group, looked at Clay through the window, and made a decision. She told security to bring them coffee instead. At midnight, a doctor emerged. She was in her 40s, dark hair pulled back, exhaustion in her eyes but steadiness in her hands. She looked around the waiting room, found Clay, walked directly to him. "You are with the children?" Clay stood. "Yes." The doctor glanced at a chart. Emma Hollis, 4 years old, severe dehydration, malnutrition, pneumonia. Her core temperature was 94 degrees when she arrived. Another few hours and we would be having a different conversation. "Is she going to survive?" The doctor nodded. "Yes. We have her stabilized. IV fluids, antibiotics, warming protocols. She is unconscious but responsive to stimuli. Her prognosis is good." Clay felt something unclench in his chest. "And Marcus?" "Dehydrated, malnourished, multiple contusions in various stages of healing. Evidence of long-term physical abuse. He is terrified but physically stable. He will not let go of his sister's hand. We are letting him stay with her." "Can I see them?" The doctor hesitated. "Family only. We are family," Clay said. His voice did not rise, did not harden. It simply stated a fact. The doctor looked at him, at Doc, at Lena, at the people who had refused to let 2 children disappear into silence. She made a decision. 5 minutes. Room 214. Clay followed her through the double doors. Doc and Lena came with him. The hallway was bright and sterile. Nurses moved past pushing carts. Somewhere a monitor beeped. Life continuing in the methodical rhythm of a place built to fight death. Room 214 was at the end of the hall. The door was half open. Clay stepped inside. Emma lay in a hospital bed that made her look even smaller than she was. 4 years old. 30 pounds at most. IV lines in both arms. Oxygen cannula under her nose. Her skin pale as paper. Her breathing shallow but steady. Monitors tracked her heartbeat, her oxygen levels. The return of warmth to a body that had been shutting down. Marcus sat in a chair pulled close to the bed. He held Emma's hand in both of his. His eyes were closed, but he was not sleeping. Just holding on. Clay moved quietly to the other side of the bed. Marcus opened his eyes. Looked up. His face was a war between relief and terror. Between hope and the certainty that hope was a lie people told children. "She is going to be okay," Clay said softly. Marcus's voice came out broken. "I tried to keep her warm. I gave her my jacket, my water. Everything. You saved her life, son. You did everything right." Marcus shook his head. Tears ran down his face. "I should have done more. I should have gotten help sooner." Clay crouched beside the chair. Eye level. "You are 7 years old. You did more than most adults would have done. You protected your sister. You kept her alive. And when you needed help, you asked for it. That takes more courage than anything else." Marcus looked at him. "Why did you come back?" "After I ran." "Why did you stay?" Clay thought about Sarah, about the night she sat beside him when he held a gun and a bottle and could not decide which one mattered more, about the way she had stayed without asking for anything in return. "Because someone stayed for me once when I needed it, and because good people always circle back. That is the promise." Marcus stared at him. Then he nodded. A small movement. An acceptance. Doc stepped forward. looked at the monitors, at Emma's vitals. He did not touch anything, did not interfere. But his eyes scanned the numbers with the instinct of someone who had spent years reading the language of bodies in crisis. "She is strong," Doc said. "Kids are tougher than we think." Lena stood by the door, her arms crossed, her face hard, but her eyes were wet. A nurse entered. She checked the IV, adjusted the flow, glanced at Clay. "You are the bikers." "Yes. The whole hospital is talking about you. Half think you are heroes. Half think you are vigilantes. What do you think?" Lena asked. The nurse looked at Emma. "At Marcus. At the monitors that proved 2 children had been hours from death. I think you did what nobody else would." She finished her checks, stepped toward the door. "I am glad you stayed." She left. At 1 a.m, Sheriff Connors arrived. He stood in the doorway, hat in his hands. Clay stepped into the hall to meet him. "Derek Strand is in custody," Connors said. "County jail. Bail hearing tomorrow, but the judge already indicated no bail. Flight risk. Danger to minors." "What are the charges?" 2 counts child endangerment. 2 counts unlawful imprisonment. Medical neglect. We are adding more as we go through the house." He paused. "We found the closet, Clay. 3 feet by 4 feet. No light. A bucket. Scratches on the inside of the door where Marcus tried to get out." Clay's hands tightened into fists. He forced them open. "CPS is taking custody of both kids," Connors continued. "Emergency placement. They are looking for a foster home that can take them together. They stay together," Clay said. "Non-negotiable." Connors nodded. "I already told them that." "What about Derek's friends? The ones who came to intimidate us? Being questioned. No charges yet, but we are making it clear that any further contact with you or the kids will result in harassment charges." Clay looked back through the doorway at Marcus and Emma. "Good." Connors put his hat back on. "For what it is worth, Clay, you were right. I should have pushed harder, should have looked closer. You are looking now. That is what matters." Connors left. At 2 a.m, Maya appeared. She had paperwork, always paperwork. But this time it mattered. "CPS has approved emergency foster placement," she said. "Carla Dupree, the neighbor. She has been cleared. Background check, home inspection, everything. The kids can stay with her as long as needed. Adoption process can start once Derek's parental rights are terminated." Clay felt relief flood through him. "They are staying together?" "Yes. And they are staying close. Carla's house is 2 doors down from where they lived. They will know the area, the school. It will help." Lena smiled. "First time in 3 days. That woman is a saint. She is someone who kept a promise." Maya said. "Same as us." At 3 a.m, Emma woke up. Her eyes opened slowly. Confused. Scared. She saw the hospital room, the monitors. Marcus beside her. She tried to sit up. Marcus squeezed her hand. "It is okay, Emma. We are safe now." Emma looked at him. Then at Clay standing at the foot of the bed. Her voice came out as a whisper. "Who are you?" Clay smiled. Gentle. Careful. "Friends. We are friends." Emma looked at Marcus for confirmation. Marcus nodded. "They helped us." Emma's eyes closed again, but her breathing stayed steady. Her hand stayed in Marcus's, and for the first time in longer than either child could remember, they slept without fear. Clay stepped out of the room, walked down the hallway, pushed through the doors into the waiting area. The club was still there. All of them, waiting. "They are going to be okay," Clay said. Nobody cheered. Nobody clapped. They simply nodded, because this was not about victory. It was about doing what needed to be done, about standing in the cold until the work was finished. Lena walked over, handed Clay a cup of coffee. "You need sleep. Later. Clay, you have been awake for 4 days." He looked at her. "And those kids were locked in a closet for 3. I can wait a few more hours." Lena did not argue. She understood. At dawn, the sun rose over Great Falls. The sky turned pink and gold. The hospital parking lot filled with morning shift workers. Life continued. The world turned. But for 2 children in room 214, everything had changed. Clay stood at the window and watched the light spread across the city. He thought about Sarah, about promises kept, about the way mercy works in the world. Quiet, invisible, until someone decides it matters enough to make noise. He pulled out his phone, took a photo of the sunrise, sent it to the club's group chat with a single word. Done. 6 weeks later, snow fell soft over Great Falls. February, the kind of cold that no longer felt cruel, just persistent. The world had moved on the way it always does. News cycles turned. Viral posts faded. The story of the bikers and the children became something people referenced in passing. A feel-good moment before the next crisis demanded attention. But for Marcus and Emma Hollis, everything had changed in ways that could not be measured in headlines. Emma had been released from the hospital after 9 days. Pneumonia treated. Malnutrition improving under careful medical supervision. Physical therapy twice a week to rebuild muscle mass lost during months of neglect. The doctors said full recovery was expected. Her body would heal. Her mind would take longer. Marcus had gained 8 pounds. His face had color now. His eyes no longer held that hollow look of someone who had stopped expecting kindness. He attended a new school closer to Carla's house. Lincoln Elementary. 3rd grade now. Moved up after testing showed he was reading 2 years above level. Hunger had not taken his mind. Only his childhood. He still had nightmares. Woke up screaming 3 times a week. Carla would come into his room, sit on the edge of his bed, and wait until his breathing slowed. She never told him it was just a dream. She knew better. Dreams do not leave bruises. Emma spoke now. Not much, but more than she had in the hospital. She said Marcus's name. Said Carla. Said the puppy's name. Sarah. They had kept the puppy. Of course they had. She lived with Marcus and Emma in Carla's house, slept at the foot of Emma's bed, and followed her from room to room like a shadow with fur and a wagging tail. On a Sunday morning in mid-February, Carla made pancakes. The kitchen smelled like butter and maple syrup. Marcus sat at the table doing homework. Math problems. Fractions. He worked carefully, checking each answer twice. Emma sat beside him coloring. A picture of a house. This one had a door. Windows with curtains pulled back. Stick figures in the yard. 1 tall, 2 short. A dog. Carla set plates in front of them. Pancakes cut into small pieces the way Emma liked. Marcus ate slowly. He still hoarded food sometimes. Hid granola bars in his backpack. Carla found them and said nothing. Trauma had its own timeline. Through the kitchen window, the sound of engines. Distant at first, then closer. The low rumble of motorcycles. Emma looked up. Marcus set down his fork. "They are here," Marcus said. Carla smiled. Right on time. Every Sunday for 6 weeks, members of the Iron Shepherds had visited. Sometimes 3 of them, sometimes 12. They brought groceries, helped with repairs around Carla's house, fixed the porch railing, replaced the water heater, shoveled snow. They never stayed long, never made a big deal of it. Just showed up, did the work, and left. Today it was Lena, Preach, and Clay. They parked their bikes in the driveway, walked to the door. Carla opened it before they knocked. "Come in. Coffee is ready?" They stepped inside, boots left by the door, jackets hung on hooks. They moved like people who had been here before, who belonged. Lena crouched beside Emma. "Hey, small one. What are you drawing?" Emma held up the picture. "My house." Lena studied it. "That is beautiful. Can I keep it?" Emma considered this, then nodded. "Okay." Lena took the picture carefully, folded it, slipped it into her jacket pocket like it was made of gold. Preach sat beside Marcus. "How is school?" "Good. We are learning fractions. You like it?" Marcus shrugged. "It is okay." Then, quieter, "The kids are nice. Nobody hits me." Preach's face did not change, but his hand rested briefly on Marcus's shoulder. "That is how it is supposed to be." Clay stood in the doorway, watching. He had visited every week but had not said much. Just checked in. Made sure the kids were safe. Made sure Carla had what she needed. He carried the same weight he always had, the responsibility of a promise kept, but never finished. Because keeping a child safe was not a single act. It was a choice made every day. Carla poured coffee, handed a mug to Clay. They are doing well. Better every week. Clay nodded. And you? Tired, but good tired. The kind that means something. She glanced at the kids. Marcus was showing Preach his math homework. Emma had climbed into Lena's lap and was pointing at her tattoos, tracing the lines with one small finger. They ask about him sometimes. Carla said quietly. Derek. They want to know if he is coming back. What do you tell them? The truth. That he is in jail. That he will not be coming back. That they are safe now. Do they believe you? Carla looked at Clay. Not yet. But they will. Clay sipped his coffee. Thought about belief. About how long it takes to rebuild trust in a world that has only ever hurt you. He thought about himself at 36. Broken. A gun in his hand. Sarah sitting beside him until the sun came up. It had taken him years to believe he deserved to be alive. These kids would need the same time. Maybe more. The legal outcome had been swift in the way cases become when the evidence is overwhelming. Derek Strand had pleaded guilty to avoid trial. The prosecution had offered a deal. 12 years, parole eligible in 7, in exchange for a guilty plea and termination of parental rights. Derek's lawyer had advised him to take it. He had. The sentencing hearing lasted 20 minutes. The judge read the charges. Derek stood silent. The judge asked if he had anything to say. Derek said no. The judge sentenced him to 12 years in Montana State Prison. No contact order with Marcus and Emma. Permanent. Clay had not attended. Neither had the club. It was not their justice to witness. It was enough that it happened. Maya had handled the adoption paperwork. Carla Dupree, age 68, widowed retired school teacher, had applied to adopt both children. The state had approved it in record time. The final hearing was scheduled for April. Barring any complications, Marcus and Emma would legally become Carla's children by summer. Ghost had continued documenting. The story had been picked up by a dozen media outlets. Some painted the bikers as heroes, others as vigilantes. Clay had declined every interview request. So had the rest of the club. The work spoke for itself. They did not need credit. They needed the system to do better next time. And it had started to. Mill Creek Road neighbors had formed a watch group. Teachers at Lincoln Elementary had been trained in recognizing signs of abuse. CPS had changed its protocol for welfare checks. Now they required unannounced visits. Follow-up within 48 hours. A child's silence was no longer treated as consent. It was not enough. It would never be enough, but it was more than there had been before. At 10 in the morning, Clay stood to leave. Lena and Preach followed. Emma ran over, hugged Lena's leg. Lena picked her up, held her for a moment, set her down gently. See you next week, small one. Emma nodded. Marcus walked over to Clay, looked up at him with eyes that still carried too much but were learning to let some of it go. Thank you, Marcus said. For coming back. Clay knelt. Eye level. I will always come back. That is the promise. Marcus nodded. Then he did something he had not done before. He hugged Clay. Quick. Tentative. But real. Clay hugged him back. Careful not to hold too tight. Careful to let the boy decide when to let go. When they stepped outside, the snow was falling heavier. The bikes were dusted white. The world quiet and clean. They mounted up. Engines turned over. The sound familiar. Comforting. As they pulled out of the driveway, Clay looked back. Marcus and Emma stood at the window, waving. Carla behind them, one hand on each small shoulder. A family. Not born. Built. Clay turned forward, rode toward the clubhouse. Lena and Preach flanking him. The snow blurred the road ahead, but the way was clear. That afternoon, Clay visited Sarah's grave. It was at Sunset Memorial Gardens on the edge of town. A simple headstone. Sarah Ann Hollis, beloved mother. 1978-2022. He knelt in the snow, pulled the iron shepherd's patch from his jacket. The one he had worn the day Marcus first appeared at the diner. He placed it on the headstone, the leather dark against the gray granite. I checked on him. Sarah. Both of them. They are safe now. I kept the promise. The wind moved through the trees. The snow fell. The world continued. Clay stood. Walked back to his bike. Rode away. 3 months later, a local news station aired a follow-up story. Bikers who saved 2 children, honored by city council. The mayor presented a proclamation, thanked the Iron Shepherds for their service, invited them to a ceremony. Clay did not attend, sent Lena instead. She accepted the proclamation, thanked the council, and said what needed to be said. We did not do this for recognition. We did it because it needed to be done. There are 37 children currently in the foster care network across Montana, connected to Iron Shepherds members. Marcus and Emma are one story. There are 36 more. If you want to honor us, pay attention to those kids too. The council applauded, the cameras recorded, the story aired. And in a small house on the edge of Great Falls, Marcus and Emma sat at a kitchen table eating Sunday dinner. Carla asked Marcus about school. He told her about a book he was reading. Emma laughed at something Sarah the puppy did. The sound bright and unburdened. On the refrigerator, held by a magnet, a drawing. Marcus and Emma. Carla. 12 motorcycles in the background. Drawn in crayon, titled in careful letters, My Family. Outside the sunset. The day ended. Another week began. And somewhere on a stretch of Montana highway, Clay Mercer rode alone. The wind cold, the road long, the weight of the promise lighter now but never gone. Because good people always circle back. That is the code. That is all it has ever been.